Disclaimer: the voices of the characters in this podcast are generated by artificial intelligence and are not performed by the original actors from Rizzoli and Isles. This podcast is created solely for non-commercial, entertainment purposes, and no profits are generated from it. This podcast is an independent fan project and is not endorsed, sponsored, or affiliated with the creators, producers, or owners of Rizzoli and Isles. We have immense respect for the original creators of Rizzoli and Isles and the talent of the original actors. Welcome to Beyond the Badge, a detective's story of home and family, the podcast that takes you beyond the crime scenes and into the heart of one detective's world. Meet Detective Jane Rizzoli, a dedicated officer with an unbreakable resolve to protect her city. But when the badge comes off, another compelling story unfolds, the story of her family. Join us as we explore the intricate dance between her duty to serve and protect and her commitment to love and nurture her family. In Beyond the Badge, you'll witness the thrilling mysteries she unravels on the job and the equally gripping challenges she faces at home. Each episode peels back the layers, revealing the intricate balance she maintains, juggling one of life's most demanding roles. Discover the stories of resilience, the triumphs, the setbacks, and the unwavering support of her loved ones. So, buckle up as we dive into the heart-pounding investigations, the heartwarming moments, and the heartaches of Detective Jane Rizzoli's life. This is Beyond the Badge. The badge is just the beginning. Episode 1 is about to begin, so grab a seat and pop some popcorn and enjoy the ride. Jane Rizzoli tapped her fingers on the steering wheel impatiently as she waited for her oldest daughter to emerge from the front doors of Boston College Preparatory Academy. She had been sitting in front of the high school waiting for some time, only a few students and parents still milling about in front of the school.
Do you know if she had something happening after school today that I don't know about?
Jane asked, looking at her 16-year-old in the rear-view mirror who was sitting in the back seat. Blaire shrugged her shoulders.
I don't know, I don't think so. She didn't say anything.
Jane glanced at the time on her phone. She still had to pick up Amelia from preschool, stop at Party City and the grocery store, not to mention setting up for the party. Amelia's third birthday party was in 2 hours, and when Maura had to work late, Jane had confidently told Maura she could handle it. Now she wasn't so sure thanks to her MIA teenager. She texted Jess, "Where are you?" in all caps before dialing Emily, their nanny.
Yes, Jane?
Emily greeted, knowing it was Jane calling from the caller ID.
Em, I need your help.
You need my help.
Emily said in unison with Jane before laughing. Emily was expecting this call ever since Jane had insisted she had everything under control.
Ha, get your laughs in. It's not my fault. Jess still hasn't come out of the school. Do you know if she had something going on after school today?
Not that I am aware of.
Jane sighed. Jess was 6 months clean from cocaine, and when the thought entered her mind that she was off getting herself into trouble, she tried to push it out of her head. Jess had done well.
Would you mind going to the grocery store and getting the stuff Ma needs? I can stop by Party City and get the decorations if you can handle that.
No problem. I can do that. If something changes and you need me to go by Party City, just let me know and I can do that as well. Are you forgetting anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Emily laughed.
I'll stop by and get Amelia.
Jane's face turned deep red.
Jesus, don't tell Maura.
That's no worse than when you took off with the wrong baby stroller at the mall and tried to take off with someone else's twins.
I did not ask for feedback from the peanut gallery, thank you.
Blaire stuck her tongue out.
I saw that.
Jane said, just as she saw Jess come out the front doors of the school in her peripheral vision.
Thanks, Em. Jess is coming out of the building now.
No problem, Jane.
Emily replied with a chuckle before hanging up. As Jess exited the school, she immediately spotted Jane's cruiser. Checking her phone for the time, she groaned.
Something wrong?
Kathy, the girl Jess had been waiting on, asked as she came to a stop beside her.
My ma's waiting for me. I'm pretty sure I can feel her eyes burning a hole in me as I speak.
Kathy laughed.
You didn't have to wait for me, you know.
Jess shrugged.
I didn't mind.
Well, it was sweet of you regardless.
Kathy said before giving Jess a quick kiss on the cheek. Jess blushed.
Well, I should probably go before,
she remarked, hitching her thumb towards the car.
Right. I'll see you tomorrow then.
Jess nodded before heading for Jane's car.
Jess?
Kathy called out.
Yeah?
My books?
Jess looked down at the books she was holding and laughed as she blushed.
Oh, yeah, you might need these.
She remarked, quickly walking back over and handing Kathy her books.
Sorry, see you tomorrow.
Kathy giggled.
Bye.
She said as Jess raced for the car. When she opened the passenger door and climbed in, she could feel Jane's eyes on her.
Nice for you to finally join us. I see all that money Mom and I are paying is being put to good use.
Jess groaned.
It's not like that, Ma. She's just a friend.
Yeah, a girlfriend.
Blaire remarked from the back seat.
Knock it off, Blaire. Jess, next time you want to flirt, do it on your own time, please. If Mom gets mad at me for being late, I'm pointing at you.
Sorry, Ma.
It's all right, Jess. I know what it's like to have a high school crush. Just next time, give me a heads up if you're going to be late.
Yes, ma'am.
Jane shook her head as she started the car and pulled away from the school. They were able to get what they needed at Party City fairly quickly, Jane and the girls practicing a divide-and-conquer technique. They were headed home when a car went sailing past Jane, who was driving well beyond the speed limit.
What the hell? Stupid idiot.
Jane yelled before shaking her head.
They gotta be going close to double the speed limit. I swear they are giving driver's licenses out in Cracker Jack boxes these days.
She grumbled.
Pull them over, Ma.
Jess said, looking up ahead where the other driver was still in sight.
Do I look like a beat cop to you? We gotta get home. We are already running late.
But it's your job to protect and serve.
Blaire chimed in from the back.
See something, do something.
Jess added. Jane sighed.
Fine.
She said as she flipped on her light and siren and picked up speed to make her way through traffic to the other car. As they got closer, Jess started laughing.
What's so funny?
Jane asked, looking at Jess like she grew an extra head.
That's Kaylin, Ma.
How do you know that? There's tons of cars like that all over Boston. Just ask me, I'm a cop.
'Cause I got her that bumper sticker.
Jess said as she grinned.
Plus, that dent in her bumper is from her running over her mailbox.
Jane's face turned from frustration to amusement. She was about to pull over her own sister-in-law. Kaylin didn't notice her at first, but eventually pulled over to the side of the road. Jane walked up to the window, trying to maintain a serious expression.
Do you have any idea how fast you were going?
Kaylin, who was digging through the glove box for her registration and insurance, hadn't looked up.
I'm not sure, officer. I guess I might have been going a bit over the limit.
Kaylin said as she continued to dig.
A bit over? You were flying. You know that's dangerous, right?
Yeah, I know, I'm sorry.
Kaylin apologized, still unaware that she was talking to Jane.
I'm running late. I have a birthday party to go to, and I still have to get home and shower and stop somewhere to buy her a gift.
Kaylin rambled.
I didn't realize I was going so fast.
Okay, license, insurance, and registration, please.
Kaylin nodded as she finally found her registration and insurance among the mess in her glove box and pulled her license out of her purse. Only then did she look up and realize it was Jane. Kaylin looked a bit embarrassed but tried to play it cool.
Oh, hey Jane, what's up?
Your speed. You were driving way too fast back there. You scared me half to death. Slow down next time, okay? The next woo-hoo behind you may not be me. I should give you a ticket, but lucky for you, I hate paperwork.
Jess and Blaire, who had snuck up behind Jane to watch this go down, both burst into laughter.
Thanks, Jane.
Kaylin said as she grinned.
Nah, don't thank me yet. I'm not going to give you a ticket, but your mom is going to love this story.
Kaylin shrugged.
I haven't seen Mom in 2 weeks. Kind of hard to ground me when she's never home.
What?
It's no big deal. I'm used to it. Look, I promise I'll be more careful next time. I was just in a hurry. I'm running late.
Yeah, so am I. Still managed to go the speed limit.
Jane replied.
Now I'm even later because I had to stop and deal with the Boston riffraff, but someone has to do it.
Sorry.
It's all right, Kaylin. Just slow down. Nothing is worth your life or someone else's. For future reference, if you get pulled over again, don't dig around in your car until the officer tells you it's okay to do. You don't want them to think you are going for a gun. Got it?
Kaylin nodded.
How did you know it was me?
Jane laughed.
Because of your bumper sticker, Jess noticed.
What bumper sticker? I don't have a bumper sticker.
Kaylin says, unhooking her seatbelt. Stepping out of her car, she walked around the back.
My driving scares me too.
She read out loud. Jess snorted with laughter.
Very funny, Jess.
What? It's perfect. At least I thought so.
Kaylin shoved Jess playfully.
All right, girls, let's go. We got to get a move on or Amelia's party will never happen.
Jane said as she and Blaire headed back to the car. Kaylin and Jess stood there for a moment.
So if you become a cop, are you going to harass all the innocent people of Boston or just me?
Jess laughed.
You? Innocent, right, and I'm the Pope. Besides, I don't think being a cop is in the cards for me.
Really? I think you would look rather cute in uniform.
Jess blushed a bit.
I was wondering if you aren't busy Friday.
She didn't finish as Jane honked. Kaylin laughed.
You better get going. We can talk later at the party.
Right, guess I'll see you in a bit then.
Kaylin nodded with a smile, causing Jess to smile back. Jane was watching the interaction and shook her head. Are they really flirting with each other? She thought as Jess climbed back in.
So you'll just flirt with anything that has a pulse?
Jess looked at Jane, her cheeks blushing a deep red.
I wasn't flirting.
Yeah, and I'm not a homicide detective.
Jane remarked with a chuckle as she pulled away from the side of the road, honking at Kaylin, who pulled out behind them.
You know that can't happen, right?
What can't happen?
You and Kaylin, Jess. She's going to be your aunt once the adoption is finalized.
Jess chewed her lip. She hadn't thought about that.
Nothing is or was happening, Mac. Can we just leave it, please?
Jane sighed. She had never paid much mind to Jess and Kaylin's interactions. She just assumed they had grown close after everything Jess went through when she first came to them, but not this kind of close. This is definitely something I need to let Maura in on, she thought as she turned down the street towards their home. When they finally got home, Jane and the girls got to work setting up decorations. As Jane focused on hanging up streamers and arranging balloons, she heard the faint sound of a car pulling up into the drive. She looked out the window and saw Emily, struggling to carry a load of groceries.
Jess, Blaire, can you go get the twins and Amelia out of the car for Em, please?
Both girls nodded as they did as they were told, opening the door for Emily as she walked in. Emily's hands were full, bags hanging from each arm as she carefully made her way through the front door. Making her way into the kitchen, she grunted as she placed all the groceries on the table.
I think I got everything.
That's all Emily had the chance to say before Blaire and Jess came back in with Amelia and the twins. Jane threw her hands up to her ears as the sound decibels ripped through her eardrums.
I wouldn't let her have a candy bar at the store because she is having cake tonight. She was not thrilled with my no. She's been screaming like that all the way home.
Amelia's frustrated cries echoed through the house, her little voice filled with disappointment and anger. Her tantrum had reached full force, with her stomping feet and tearful protests making quite the spectacle in the living room. Adding to the chaos, the twins were in the midst of a duet of wails, their 6-month-old cries harmonizing with Amelia's emotional symphony. Jane couldn't help but sigh as she moved to help Emily unpack the groceries.
Aren't you going to do anything?
Blaire yelled over the screaming kids as she walked into the kitchen with Abby on her hip, Jess following behind with Maddie.
Take the twins and put them in the playpen in the living room and leave Amelia to her tantrum. Emily and I need you and Jess to help in here.
But Ma, they're crying.
And
Jane had that look on her face that always clearly communicated to Blaire she was on thin ice. Blaire held up her free hand in surrender.
Okay, don't shoot.
Usually, Jane would be on top of a mega tantrum in efforts to thwart those kinds of behaviors, and she also wasn't one to let her babies cry. But they were getting down to the wire, and a girl had to do what a girl had to do. She would ice skate in that huge ice rink in hell before she heard Maura's "I told you so."
Hey, Janie.
Corsac said as he stepped into the house. Joe Friday running around his feet barking, announcing her arrival as well.
God, you brought the dog too.
What? It's a party. I couldn't leave her alone. Isn't that right, Joe?
Corsac said, reaching down to pet the dog.
Fine, just don't let her poop in the floor or chew up my shoe like she did last time.
Whoa, what's going on here?
Jane's brother Frankie remarked as he and her other brother Tommy came through the front door with the table Jane asked for them to pick up. Joe Friday ran to them barking. Jane groaned. Of course everyone was going to show up now.
Where do you want this table, Janie?
Tommy asked loudly, adding to the headache Jane felt coming.
Just set it up by the front door and put this on it,
she remarked, tossing a Barbie tablecloth at her brother, barely missing her ma who was carrying in a tray of food. Walking past the crying twins and a still screaming Amelia, Angela set the tray of food on the counter.
Is someone going to handle that?
Holy shit, do they come with a mute button?
Kaylin asked, walking into the growing madness. Blaire chuckled as she looked at her ma, who looked like she was going to lose it any second. The cries reverberating inside of Jane's head along with the barking dog made her pinch the bridge of her nose.
Amelia Rain, that's enough. Corsac, can you please make that dog stop barking? My head is going to explode.
The twins' cries gradually subsided as soon as Amelia's cries came to a screeching halt when Jane called her name. Finally, being able to hear herself think, Jane set everyone up with a task. She needed all the help she could get at this point. Maura had finished for the day when she was notified of movement over their in-home security cameras. Deciding to see how things were progressing, she opened the app on her phone. She couldn't help but laugh as she watched and listened to the madness unfolding in their home. Jane and everyone else could be seen moving from one room to another in a mad dash to get everything squared away before she arrived. She closed the app, still chuckling as she gathered her things. She appreciated Jane's willingness to take on the tasks of getting Amelia's party ready, but she couldn't help the smirk on her face. She tried to warn Jane of the chaos that might come, but Jane Rizzoli was hard-headed.
I got this, babe. Piece of cake.
She said out loud, repeating Jane's words from that morning as she grabbed her keys and shut out the lights. 20 minutes later, she walked into their home, looking around at the transformation into a Barbie birthday wonderland. Jane had done a really great job. Maura was impressed she had managed to pull all of this together. As she made her way towards Jane, she couldn't resist a playful smirk.
Well, Officer Rizzoli, it seems you've got everything under control.
She teased, her voice laced with amusement.
Yeah, like I said, piece of cake.
Jane replied as she grinned. Maura laughed.
Your gig is up. I saw the security cameras. I told you.
Jane held up her hand.
Don't you do it.
Do what?
Say I told you so.
Okay, I won't.
Maura leaned in and placed a soft kiss on Jane's cheek.
I did try to warn you of potential chaos.
Hey, using different words is still I told you so without saying I told you so. That's cheating.
Maura laughed.
It looks great in here, Jane. Where are the kids?
Maura asked, realizing they were a little too quiet.
Emily took them outside to play. She's keeping them occupied until everything is ready.
Just then, the woman Maura hired for the themed party arrived. She was dressed in a vibrant and colorful outfit, exuding energy and enthusiasm. She really did resemble the famous Mattel doll.
Is there somewhere I can get dressed?
Kristen, the woman, asked after she introduced herself to Jane and Maura.
Oh, absolutely. Follow me.
Maura said with a smile as she showed the woman to the downstairs guest bathroom. Jane went outside to set up a few kid-friendly games and a few other things. Walking back inside, Jane had to do a double take. The woman who her wife hired was stepping out of the bathroom in what she could only describe as not kid-friendly attire. Quickly moving over to Maura, she began poking her.
More?
Just a minute.
Maura said as she continued talking to Angela.
More.
Jane said again.
You need to see this.
She said, still poking her wife. Finally, Maura had enough of Jane's intrusive poking.
My lord, what is it, Jane?
She remarked, looking at her wife, who then just pointed to something behind her. Turning to look, Maura's mouth fell open as Angela gasped.
That is not appropriate for a child's party.
Ma, not helping.
Whoa!
Tommy said, coming inside from the backyard.
I don't remember Barbie ever looking like that.
God, Tommy, stop. Go back outside.
Jane said, pointing.
Keep the kids out there until we figure this out. Ma, just go help, somewhere.
She said, waving her hand away from the living room.
Jane.
Frankie said, coming into the kitchen, almost running into the cabinets as his eyes were on the woman. He made his way to Jane in the living room.
I don't think she's an entertainer for kids.
Gee, you don't say.
Jane remarked sarcastically.
Go outside and help Tommy.
And Jane, what are we supposed to do? I had no idea. I thought oh God. Amelia's friends and their parents are going to be here any minute.
Relax, babe.
Relax. Jane, there's a stripper at our 3-year-old's birthday party.
Just stay here.
Jane said as she walked over to Kristen.
Hey, Kristen?
Yeah?
There's been a bit of a mix-up.
Jane said, looking anywhere but at the woman in front of her.
See, my wife was looking for a child entertainer. She was given your number by a coworker, and, well, I think some information got lost in translation because this is our 3-year-old's birthday party.
Kristen's eyes grew wide as she tried to cover herself.
Oh my God, I am so sorry. I thought it was strange that someone would want me to dress as Barbie, but you never know.
Mistakes happen. Maybe we can still salvage this. Do you have any clothes that are, well, a bit more appropriate?
Not really.
Okay, well, my wife probably has something pink you can wear. Can you maybe pass out the little Barbie jewelry we bought out to the girls and just talk to them? Maybe play a game or two with them?
Jane was trying. She knew she needed to remedy the situation as quickly as possible before parents started to arrive with their children.
Yeah, absolutely, I can do that. After all this is mostly my fault, I should have asked more questions.
Okay, great. Let me just grab my wife and she can help you out with something to wear, and don't worry about your pay. We will still compensate you.
With a plan made, Jane walked over to Maura.
Okay, since we don't have time to find someone else to do the job, Kristen will talk with the girls, pass out some of that plastic jewelry we bought, and play a game or two with the kids.
But Jane, she can't go out there like that.
That's where you come in, babe. She needs something pink to wear. Clothes, shoes, the whole nine. I know you have something in that huge closet of yours. We gotta move quickly, though. Time is wasting.
Okay, all right, we can do this.
Jane laughed and looked over at Kristen.
Follow Maura. She'll get you set up.
45 minutes later, Kristen and Maura emerged from upstairs.
Well?
Maura asked.
I'm impressed but not surprised. You did awesome, babe. She actually looks like a real-life Barbie.
Thank you.
Maura said with a smile.
Now let's get this party started. Amelia and her friends are anxiously waiting.
Kristen nodded as she walked to the back door. Jane and Maura followed behind. The excited screams from the girls as Kristen stepped out made Jane laugh and sigh with relief.
Looks like we dodged a bullet.
We did thanks to you.
Maura said, coming to stand next to her wife. She wrapped her arm around her waist and smiled as she watched the kids. Jane kissed the top of Maura's head.
It was nothing, babe.
You're not going to let me live this down after today, are you?
Jane laughed.
Not a chance, but for now, let's go celebrate Amelia's birthday. There will be plenty of time to poke fun later.
Maura laughed as they stepped outside to join everyone else. A while later, Jane stepped back in to take a breather from the many horsey rides she had given and to give her ears a break from overly excited, screeching 3-year-olds. As she rounded the corner to the kitchen to refill her fruit punch, she saw Blaire sitting at the table with her head in her arms. Jane could hear the distinct sounds of sniffling.
B, what's wrong?
Blaire lifted her head at the sound of Jane's voice, wiping away her tears.
Nothing, Ma. I'm okay.
Jane put her drink cup down on the kitchen counter, walking over and taking a seat next to her daughter. She reached over and gave her back a few reassuring rubs.
Remember that talk we had a while back? That talk about not bottling stuff up?
Blaire nodded.
So talk to me, please. Let's not hold it in and explode all over the party guests.
Blaire chuckled.
Ma!
What? You know it's true.
Jane chuckled herself before turning serious.
Talk to me, kid.
Blaire hesitated for a few moments, nervously twisting her hair trying to find the right words. She didn't want to hurt her parents.
It's just hard sometimes, that's all.
What is?
I could have never given Amelia all this.
Blaire gestures around at all the party decorations.
I'm thankful for you and Mom, I am. You took Amelia and I in, but...
Blaire's voice trailed off as she stared at the floor, fighting another round of tears.
Blaire, it's okay. Stop worrying about me. I'm a big girl. Tell me what you're feeling.
When Blaire still remained quiet, Jane tried again.
B, I want you to know something, and I'm going to sound like Mom here, spouting random facts. A mother's love is one of the most powerful things on earth. As a cop, I've seen firsthand what a mother will do to protect her child. I saw a woman about your size toss a 300-pound man like he was a rag doll. It takes ordinary humans and gives them super strength. That kind of thing, it's not something you can fight and not something you can bury. Nor do Mom and I want you to. Tell me what's on your mind. Please?
She doesn't remember anymore. She thinks I'm her sister. I'm not her sister. I'm her mother. For the first 2 years of her life, she called me Mama. Now she calls you Mama, and it's just hard. I feel like I'm caught up in some giant game of pretend. What if she hates me for it someday?
Sweetie, she's not going to hate you. She will understand. B, you were just a baby yourself when you had a baby. It's okay to not have to worry about all that adult stuff and just enjoy being a kid yourself. Mom and I are not going to hide it from her forever. We are just waiting until she's old enough to understand.
Why, though? I mean, why couldn't you help me take care of her and just tell her the truth?
Blaire, remember Mom and I had Amelia for a while before we found you. Amelia was already calling us Mommy and Mama by then. We decided to not confuse her. We even talked to you about it. Remember? If the circumstances had been different, maybe we...
You're right. It's my fault. I gave her away.
Blaire said as her voice broke and her tears were replaced by sobs. Jane rubbed her back and chewed her lip. She wasn't helping.
Stay right here, B. I'll go get Mom. Maybe she can explain this a little better than me.
Blaire didn't look up as Jane stood and walked back outside.
Maura, can I talk to you for a sec?
Jane said as she politely smiled at the parent Maura was talking to.
If you'll excuse me for just a moment.
Maura said to the other woman before letting Jane guide her away from the crowd.
We have a situation.
Oh?
Yeah, Blaire is having a sort of meltdown. She's upset that Amelia doesn't know that she's her mother. It seems to be eating at her pretty badly today.
Maura had a look of alarm on her face.
Do you think she's going to tell her? Jane,
Jane held up her hand.
I know more. I know it'll just confuse Amelia. I mean, the kid is 3. I tried to talk to her and explain where we are coming from, but I don't think I'm explaining it right. All I managed to do was make her cry more.
Maura couldn't help but chuckle. Sometimes Jane could be so great at comforting, and sometimes she missed the mark by a mile. She reached out and gave Jane's fidgeting hands a gentle squeeze.
I'll go talk to her.
Thanks, Mar. I know sometimes I have a way of making situations worse.
Maura smiled as she started walking towards the house.
Sometimes.
Hey!
Jane said in protest, making Maura laugh.
I'm kidding. Keep the guest company, please, and there's a few kids waiting for their turn for a horseback ride.
Maura stepped into the house with a laugh as she heard Jane groan. She found Blaire staring out the window with a distant look in her eyes. The turmoil within her was evident.
Hey.
Blaire said softly, barely looking at her as Maura approached.
Hey, mind if I join you?
Blaire shook her head, and both of them stood in silence for a moment, just watching the party outside. Maura waited, letting Blaire gather her thoughts.
It's just so hard.
Blaire finally said, her voice wavering.
I see her growing up in a house that's not mine, calling you and Mom Mama and Mom. And I wonder if I made the right decision.
Blaire wiped away a tear and turned to Maura.
Not that you and Ma aren't great parents to her. I'm not saying that. I'm just scared, you know. Scared that someday she'll find out the truth and be angry at me for keeping it from her.
It was silent for a moment before Blaire continued.
I miss being her mom. I couldn't give her all this stuff like you do, but I did love her. She was my entire world. Actually, make that she is my entire world. That hasn't changed.
Maura placed a comforting hand on Blaire's shoulder.
Sweetie, come sit for a moment.
Once they were both sitting, Maura continued.
What you did was incredibly selfless, Blaire. You put Amelia's well-being first, and that's something to be admired. I understand that it's not easy and your feelings are valid. You'll always be her mother. When she's older, she'll come to appreciate the sacrifices you've made for her. Right now, you're giving her the best life you can. That's what we ultimately do as mothers. When the time is right, you and Amelia will still share a mother-daughter relationship just like I have with Grandma Hope. Ma and I, we're not taking that away from you, okay? It's just right now, Amelia is still very young. She's too young to understand any of this. It will only confuse her.
Blaire nodded.
I understand, I do, and I am thankful. Even if she doesn't know who I am, I can still see her grow up. I guess I should be a little more grateful.
No, don't say that. Like I said, your feelings are valid. Your ma and I knew this wasn't going to be easy for you. We knew there was a possibility that this conversation would arise at some point. We may not hold all the answers, but I'm glad you told us what you are feeling. I hope that we were able to clear up a few things for you.
Blaire smiled and nodded.
It did. Thanks, Mom.
Maura smiled and hugged her daughter.
Now let's get back to the party. I left your ma out there unsupervised.
Blaire laughed as they stood and made their way outside. A while later, the party was wrapping up as the last parent showed up for their little one. Jane took a look around.
How can a bunch of 3-year-olds make this big of a mess?
Maura laughed as she handed Jane a trash bag.
It was your idea for the plastic jewelry, remember?
Don't remind me. We'll probably keep finding them until Amelia's next birthday.
After everyone pitched in to get everything cleaned up, Jane tossed the last bag in the garage bin at the street. On her way back up the driveway, she picked up the basketball near the goal and tossed it to Blaire.
Want to play?
Blaire didn't get a chance to respond before Jess walked over and took the ball from Blaire.
How about a quick game? Me and Kaylin against you and Ma?
What do you say, Ma? You want to show these two how the game is really played?
Blaire asked, hitching her thumb towards Kaylin and Jess. Jane chuckled.
Sure, I have some time to show you young uns how it's done.
A little while later, the game was tied 17-17. Jess had the ball and was trying her best to fake out Jane, but with the experience Jane had playing years of basketball, she wasn't falling for it. Jess looked at Jane, then the net, and back again. As she started to move back and to the left, she didn't see Blaire. As Jess aimed and released the ball, the blonde quickly jumped, grabbing the ball out of the air, turning and shooting a three-pointer that effectively ended the game. Jane and Blaire's celebratory high fives and laughter echoed in the evening air.
You totally cheated Blaire,
Jess remarked, struggling to catch her breath. Blaire threw her head back and laughed.
No, me and Ma kicked your butts fair and square. No cheating needed.
Blaire said as she turned and high-fived Jane once more.
We want a rematch.
Jane laughed.
Maybe a little later, Jess. Why don't you all come inside and get something to drink? I need to check in on Mom anyway.
You coming, Blaire?
Jess asked as she followed Jane and Kaylin towards the front door.
Blaire?
She said again when her sister didn't answer her. Turning around, Jess gasped as she saw Blaire collapse to the ground.